They was giving him food, Dave, that was raising his insulin. And then, of course, his blood sugar, I should say. Then they give him insulin. This was day after day. I said, honey, why don't you eat a hamburger with lettuce and tomatoes, no bun, and let me get it for you so that you don't have to keep taking these insulin shots because it's just going to keep happening when you eat the food they're giving you. Because they gave him mashed potatoes and gravy and meats, and I'm like, and the meat wasn't meat. He didn't like chicken. He's not a chicken person. And they gave him, I think, one time they gave him some meatballs or something. But I'm thinking, this is going to raise your blood sugar. So as soon as it was up 150, he had an insulin. So the next day they come in for that evening to check it, and it was like, oh, it's down to 130. And they said, you did good. I said, yeah, you didn't eat your food.
Linda, how did you find Carnivore?
Well, it was back in 2016. I had some inflammation starting in my body, and I was really inflamed. And it was funny because I was got up one night from my couch, and I started having burning on the bottom of my feet. And I'm like, oh, I've heard of this before, and it's considered neuropathy. Now, at that time, I weighed 175 pounds. That was my highest weight ever. And I knew that I had to do something. So I kind of just prayed about it. And the weird thing was the next night I came down and sat down on the couch again, my normal. And um, there was this email that came from a doctor named Gala Faddis, and he is a chiropractor. Well, he was talking about inflammation of the body and how your body would foods cause inflammation. I thought, well, that kind of sounds like me, with the foods I was eating because I was very high carb, plant-based, meat, you name it, I was eating it, donuts, all that good stuff. And so I said, okay, let me look at this. But he sent a whole packet of stuff in my email that I could open up and look at. It was like a little ebook. And he had a whole list of foods, mostly meats, which I was really surprised. And he had a whole list of meats you could eat. And then he started with some vegetables and some nuts and berries, but he left a lot of fruit and stuff out. So I thought, well, this is kind of interesting. So I thought, well, maybe I need to try this, because his mother, she had had fibromyalgia and she was like in her 60s when she had finally he had went to school for the chiropractor, and I guess they learn a lot about foods is what I understood. So they had learned a lot about foods, and he called his mom. He said, Mom, I want you to start doing this, get rid of this food, start eating this food. And she ended up coming out of the wheelchair, and she was a marathon runner at 67 years old. So I thought, well, there's something to this. So I started there, and then I got into keto. Well, one of the bad things with keto for me was I love to bake, so almond flour is what you really use. Okay. Well, I had no idea that was just causing more inflammation to my body until I seen a video from Sally K. Norton, and she was talking about almond flour and almonds and all this stuff. I'm like, well, no wonder I can't get well. I've got all this inflammation, and I'm just adding to it by this and some other foods, as I found out later. So I backed off of all that and I said, okay, let's go more whole food, away from all the baking stuff. But there was one cookie that I loved, and it was called Keto Magic Cookie. So that was my treat. And it had unsweet coconut in it and chocolate morsels. It was unsweet and that kind of stuff. So it was all good stuff. So I thought, okay, I can eat this. This is not bad. And it didn't put weight on me. So that was a good thing. So that was mine and my husband's treat, and I did do some of the brownies, chocolate brownies. Well, that I found out chocolate was bothering me because it was very inflammatory. I'm like, oh, I love chocolate, so I had to back off of that. So what was really amazing to me was when I started this, I had lots of inflammation in my knees, I had inflammation in my lower back, and I had sciatic nerve. Well, I found out with the sciatic nerve, Dave, that if I ate corn, it caused it. And I couldn't figure this out. I'm like, surely it's not because I love popcorn. So I'd sit down every night and I would eat popcorn and I'd have sciatic nerve problems. I didn't understand that's what was doing it. So by learning all about food, I thought maybe it's the popcorn. So it always took about 4 or 5 days for my sciatic nerve to leave and, I could start back over again. So I said, okay, let me try the popcorn one more time. So I did. Within an hour, my sciatic nerve came back. It was painful. I'm like, it's the popcorn. So it just amazed me. And I'm like, okay, this is crazy. So I said, well, real corn do the same thing. So I tried real corn, same thing happened. So I said, okay, ditch the corn because the sciatic nerve hurts so bad. You know, if you're moving, it just sometimes just put me right in the chair and I couldn't move because of it. So that was one of the things that bothered me. Then I found out with my knee, because I had some really bad knee pain a while when it was back in the 2000s, early 2000s. I had my knee swelled up double the size, and I couldn't figure out why, but my back was hurting too. So I thought maybe my back's out. So I went to a chiropractor, and he checked my back. He said, "No, you have nothing wrong with your back." But he said, "I'm confused. What's going on with you?" So he says, "Stand up." So he rubbed his hand under my left foot and my right foot, and he says, "Your left arch has fallen in your foot. That's what's causing your inflammation in your leg." So he said, "We need to get you shoe inserts." Now he said, "I can make them, or you can go buy Dr. Scholl's." So I did what he said with Dr. Scholl's first. So I went and got Dr. Scholl's. I put him in my shoes, and a day later he calls. He says, "How you doing?" I said, "Both of my knees are killing me." And he's like, "Why?" I said, "I did what you said." He said, "This don't make sense." He said, "Did you take your inserts out of your shoes?" I'm like, "No." He said, "Well, you have to do that." I said, "Well, you didn't tell me that." So when I did that, it was instant relief on my knees. So that was great. However, this was the weird thing. I haven't had inserts in my shoes since I started keto and carnivore. It was like I have no more problems with that. But I did find out about my knee. If I eat strawberries, which I love strawberries, and I had backed off of them because I found out they were making my knee hurt. So it's funny how I'm doing foods and certain, because when you clean it out of your body, it's like your body tells you what you put back in is hurting it. So I said, okay, no more strawberries. So I've had no problems with my knees. And I'm like, this is amazing. And then I found out celery hurts my shoulder. Can't eat celery because it goes straight to my shoulders. And seeing this, I said, okay, this makes sense because Sally K. Norton said that celery is very high oxalates. And I'm like, well, that makes sense, you know. And my body was so full of them, I think, because of all the foods I was eating that was full of oxalates. And I'm like, okay, so that must be what's doing it. And today, if I even eat celery, the same thing happens. My shoulders start hurting. So I just stay away from this food. It's like it's like a demon for me. It's like, no, I'm not not eating this stuff. So I that's how I got started with the carnivore diet and the keto diet was getting rid of the inflammation. But it was like a godsend for me. And then, of course, like a lot of people, we listened to YouTube videos and we had Dr. Berry and then Dr. Shapey and all these other doctors that I listened to. And I'm like, man, they're onto something. So that's how I found out about it. And I have a girlfriend who she's what they call, she can, she's like a healer. She feels your energy in your body. Like if you have a bad shoulder, she can touch your body and say, what's wrong with your shoulder? And she knows that's where your pain is. And so she had a little business and she had me come in and she says, why don't you talk the nutrition to people because you're listening to all these videos and it was great for me because I loved it. I loved helping people, find out what's hurting them. So I said, okay. So I did a little nutrition thing and it was free. Anybody could come and see it. So it was so funny. This one lady, she said, "Do you mind if I stay?" I said, "No, stay. That's fine." So she was there, and I went over what Dr. Berry said and the information about foods and keto carnivore. And I said, "Now you got to eat good keto, not the dirty keto. Get whole foods, and good meat." And she said, "Okay." So I think there was like 4 or 5 people there that night. So the woman took the information because I printed out stuff for people and just gave it to them because to me it's like if I can help you for free, I don't mind doing that. I'm not a nutritionist, so I didn't want to charge anyway. So just come and listen and maybe you'll learn something. So the lady, she left. I never seen her for 3 months. I thought, okay, maybe she just didn't want to come back or whatever. So it was in December, we were doing one of our little shows, and she come in and she said, "You don't remember me, do you?" And I'm like, "You look familiar." So she told me her name, and I was like, "I can't believe this." I said, "What have you been doing?" She said, "I did exactly what you told me." She said, "Linda," she said, "right after I left, I broke my ankle." I said, "Oh my goodness." And she said, "And it healed so much faster because I started eating steak and salad. She said, I just went cold turkey and just started eating meat and I would eat all good foods. And I said, so you healed really quick? And she said, oh, yeah. And she said, and I won't go back. She said, I can't believe how great I feel. So that made me feel so good that, there was some people who really took away what I gave them and used it. And another thing, Dave, I had in 2017, I had quit playing golf. I hadn't played golf for like 5 years. Well, in 2017, I decided to paint our 10 by 20 building. Now, mind you, before this happened, I painted our deck, and this was in 2016. And I had to crawl over to get a hold of something to get myself up when I was down on the deck painting because I was so inflamed and I couldn't get up by myself. And it's like, this is crazy. I'm 60 years old and I can't get up. It's like, this is not good. So I said, okay. In 2017, I decided I'm going to paint our 10 by 20 building. And Dave, I'm telling you, I was so amazed. I got on the ladder. My back didn't hurt, my knees didn't hurt, my neck didn't hurt, and I'm painting this building. And I did 4 or 5 hours of it because it would get so hot you have to quit. So I'd go up early in the morning and start, and then I would quit. And I'm like, I can't believe my neck's not hurting or my knees aren't hurting, and I'm going up and down this ladder. And before, if I did, my back would kill me with the ladder. So it's like, this is amazing. But this is food. I mean, it's because I got the processed crap out of my body. And now I've got good food in my body. So it was just, and sweat. You know how you sweat and you'd stink? I'd sweat and I wouldn't stink. And I'm like, oh goodness, it had to be all that yucky food and poisoning that I was putting in my body was causing this. So it's like the BO just wasn't there. And I'm like, I can't believe all the difference that I found in my body afterwards. And I would have eyelashes. Like if I was this has happened for years. I'd be down watching TV and I get this eyelash. It would hurt me and I start pulling and pulling, trying to get that one little hair. Well, by the time I got done, I had this great big space in my eyelashes. And I was like, oh, how funny I look. Then I would take eye mascara and put over it, trying to hide it. But I never would get that hair. It just kept pulling. And I don't have that anymore. It's gone. I've not had any of that problem. And I'm like, this is fantastic. And, but to tell people, they can't believe it. It's like they're like, oh, she's kind of crazy. And to this day, I think people think I'm crazy because I eat the way I do, but I'm healthy, and I feel good. And I used to do a school for the kids. I used to do dance, like liturgical dancing and puppets and stuff like that. And some of the songs you would go down on your knees, and at that time my knees were hurting me because I wasn't doing this kind of stuff, this eating. But since then, I have no problems going down on my knees and back up, but I'm not doing that anymore. But at that time, I'm thinking people don't know how bad this is hurting me to get down here with these kids and back up, but I did it. It's like at that time, you just kind of cut it out of your mind and say, okay, you just got to do what you got to do. But it's been a journey that I am happy I started. And my husband, of course, now has started it more with me because in the last 6 months, he's had 3 heart attacks. So he has got on board with this. And I can tell the difference in the last 3 weeks that he's been doing this. He has changed so much and feels so much better. And so, and it's funny how doctors don't talk to you about that. And I made one doctor, I think, a little upset because he had done my husband's heart cath and he told us that he had 3 stents. Well, I said, are you sure? Because I've got this heart thing they gave me and it shows only 2 stents. So I took it out to him and I said, show me where the other stent is. So he showed me and I said, oh, well, they don't have that showing here. So I thought he only had 2 stents and it was the Widowmaker and the others right beside of it where they put what they called a kissing stent. So I don't know if this doctor thought that was 3 stents or what. So I told him, I said, well, when he goes home, he's going to be going into a low carb diet. And it was like, boom, he was up out of his chair, walking down the hall, didn't say, see you later. I said, oh, I must have made him upset with me or something. I don't know. But I guess he didn't like that. And I know they can't talk about diet. They can't talk to you about foods at all. But I did have a lady come in. I got to tell you this. She was I think she was their cardiac dietitian, and she brought me 3 books. And these 3 books told what you're to eat, not to eat. So I'm sitting there and I'm looking at this book and while she's standing there and she said, so this is the stuff you should not be eating. I mean, it was stuff that I looked at her and I said, you do realize you're telling me this, but they're feeding him this stuff in the hospital while he's here? And she looks and smiles and she just shook her head and she said, you start this when you go home. And I thought, no, I don't want your book when I go home. We're going low carb and we're going meat. That's it. And get rid of the sugars. And my husband has amazed me. He's got off all the soda pop. He's not drinking any pop, no sugar. I mean, I'm just like totally amazed with what he's doing. But he was kind of that way before his heart attack, but not a lot. He would eat potato chips and stuff like that. And I knew it was going to be bad for him. He's diabetic. And it's just amazing when you start it, how you find out what it does for you, you know. So yeah, it's been great. I'm
Wow.
still doing it. I'm just not gonna stop.
So, so how long have you been doing this yourself?
Started in 2016. So I've started
Oh.
like the keto and then I went to carnivore, kind of ketovore as they would call it, and I feel better. So
How many times do you eat in a day, and what are those meals like?
well, in the morning, I always eat a breakfast because this has been a habit, I think, of mine. And I eat my breakfast in the morning, and it's usually eggs or bacon. I'm a bacon, love my bacon. I mean, that's one thing is thank goodness we can have bacon on carnivore, but I do love my bacon. And I'm like, I really need to do this all the time because it's just amazing how much better you feel and the energy I have. The other day, my husband sees me in the kitchen, and I'm kind of like dancing around doing this, and he says, where are you getting all that energy? I said, well, I've been drinking my bone broth, been eating meat, so yeah, I'm getting my energy from that, you know. So some days I just kind of like a little energized bunny, you know, running around doing stuff. But yeah, but I'll tell you, Dave, what I found out about this diet. I went back to playing golf in 2020 because I quit for 5 years because the heat was killing me. And so, of course, I weighed 175 pounds, so that sure didn't help. And eating all the junk food definitely didn't help. So I went back to golfing in 2020, and I thought, I'm going to be so sore tomorrow because I had not swung a club for like 5 years. I wasn't sore at all. And I'm like, this is amazing. Because I told Dawn, I said, even lifting weights and doing stuff like that, I said, I'm not sore like I used to be. I used to hurt all over when I would do that. And I told him, I said, it's just amazing when you're doing that, you don't have the pain you used to have. So it's it's just a great for me, it's been really great. And then I'm 67 right now. We'll be 67 in October. And I feel like I don't know. I'd say in my 40s. I won't say 20s because 20s was my really good time. In between that was really bad. But yeah, so I would say like in my 40s, I've gotten feeling a lot better. Probably even, I don't know. I just feel like I'm not, I guess like some 60-year-olds feel like aches and pains, like I did when I was 60, because when I was 60, I really was so inflamed. It was terrible. But I got to tell you about my niece. Um, she seen me, I think it was in 2019 when it was. And she had seen me back home. Used to live in West Virginia. We live in South Carolina now. So she seen me back there. And when she came to visit us that fall, she said, Aunt Linda, I want to know what you're doing. I said, okay. So I told her. She said, I want to do this. And I said, okay, that's good. She said, you look so good though. And you feel good. I can tell the difference from the years before. I said, well, I do feel good. So I was waiting for her. I gave her all the literature that I had given all the other people, and I told her how to start. So we went out for my birthday because that's when they had come down, and we went out to eat at Red Lobster. And she said, "I said, well, you're going to have a biscuit, right?" She said, "Nope." I'm like, "You're not eating no biscuit." She said, "Nope." I said, "Well, I'll eat your biscuit." I'll take Red Lobster biscuits. She said, "I'm starting this diet now." I'm like, "You're serious?" And she said, "Oh, yes, I am." Well, she was 50, I think is what she told me when she had found she had high blood pressure and she had never been sick before. And she said, I feel like this is going to help me. So I said, well, I'll give you the information. You go home, you read over it, you decide. And she does her own cooking. She's not one that eats out a lot. So her and her husband was there. Well, her husband didn't get on board with her till just this coming year. and he has felt the benefits. But I had to laugh. Her and her husband went out to do. He's a park ranger, so they went to this. It's called Pipestem State Park, and she said while they were there, she decided she was going to eat in a restaurant and just kind of eat whatever she wanted because she's on vacation, right? So they had been out walking, and she said this one evening, she said, "We're walking." And she said, "Aunt Linda, I couldn't move." She said, "My hip." She said, "That pain came back." And she looks at her husband. She said, he turned around and said, "Are you okay?" She said, "No, Aunt Linda was right." She said, "When you put this food back in you, it shows." She said, "I can't move." She said, "My hip hurts bad." And I felt so good that she called and told me that. She said, "I just couldn't believe that it really would do that." And I said, "Well, you found out." Because Dave, I used to have my left hip would hurt so bad when I lay down in bed. And it would be like I tried to go to my right side, my right, and then my shoulder hurt. I'm like, this is ridiculous. And after I started getting rid of all the processed foods, eating the keto carnivore diet, I have no more hip pain. It's gone completely. And I was afraid I was going to have hip surgery because everybody can, who has it, they're like, oh, well, I'm going to have surgery. I'm thinking, I ain't going to doctor because that's what they would tell me. So with this diet, it was like the hip was fine. And that's what my niece said. And she called me up and she says, "Aunt Linda, you're not going to believe it." She said, "I was down sitting on the floor and I had my legs crossed like a yoga style and didn't even realize I could do that." But she said, "I was amazed." She says, "Look, I'm sitting like this," because she hadn't sat like that for so long. And I said, "It is amazing what this way of eating." I don't like to call it a diet. I just call it's a life change. Because once you start it and you feel so good, Dave, you don't want to go back, or you shouldn't want to go back. But I think my husband is seeing some of the effects for him. And, in just 3 weeks. But of course, like I said, he was kind of tapering down to more of a keto carnivore other than potato chips and stuff like that. So I kept saying, you don't need that. That's not good for you, the seed oils and all this. But he's amazed me in the last 3 weeks since he's been out of the hospital, how well he's doing. And
Yeah. So, are you on any medications?
mm, no, I'll tell you, back in the days, it was in 2007, 2008. I wasn't working. Well, I worked as a payroll clerk in the coal mines back in West Virginia, and I'm sitting there at the office, and all of a sudden I feel like I'm in a tunnel. I hear things in a tunnel type thing. I said, something's not right. So I went downstairs into the safety director and I said, "Can you check my blood pressure? Something just told me something wasn't right." So he did, and it was like 204 over 190 something or something. He said it was terrible. He said, "You need to go to the doctor." Well, I've never been one who does doctors very well. So I said, "Okay." He said, "You want us to take you?" I'm like, "No, I don't feel bad. I just feel like I'm in a tunnel. There's tunnel noise." So my HR person, she said, "Take an aspirin before you go." So I did. And I go to the doctor's office and he's checking me and he's checking my blood pressure. By that time, it had come down some. But I was under a lot of stress, going through divorce, stress at home, or not home, but stress at work and stuff. So I know that's what it was. It was stress. And so I said, okay. He gives me two blood pressure medicines. He said, "I want you to take these medications." I said, "I don't like medication." Well, this is his remarks. "Every book I ever read said you need to be on these medications." I'm like, "Well, I'll take them with me, but I'm not promising you anything." Because I said, I am stressed and I know what's doing it. So I knew a lady who was an herbalist and I had went to her and she gave me this pill. She said, "This is called stress relief." And she gave me this little oil. It was a flower oil of some sort. And she said, "You take the pill and you drop the oil under your tongue." And she said, "When you do that," she says, "you're going to see you'll feel better." Because I told her, I said, "I don't want to do these medications because once you get on them, they want to keep you on them." And so she said, "Try it." I did, Dave. No more problems with my blood pressure. Not to this day, I haven't had any. And I don't even take this stuff now. Now, when my husband first had his heart attack, his first one, I could feel the stress, breathing wise and stuff. I said, "Okay, I'm going to take a couple of my stress relief pills because I had them up in the cupboard and they didn't have an expiration date. And they seemed to help me. So I just took a couple of them and I've been fine. And I know if I was not eating like I am, I would not have been able to get through what I what I've gotten through because I had to sleep in a recliner at the hospital because I wouldn't leave because we were like an hour and a half away from home the first time. The second time was 3 hours away from home. So I said, I'm staying. So they gave me a recliner, and I thought, man, there's no way I'd been able to sleep in this recliner if I was eating all the food I was eating before because I would be in so much pain. But yeah, so I'm just, I'm happy, really happy I'm doing this. And I try to tell friends, and I've tried to help a lot of people, and some people can do it, some people can't, so it's just one of those things.
Yeah.
But
So how much money would I need to give you to go back to a regular way of eating?
mm, Dave, that's not going to happen. I feel too good. It's like I told my husband, I said, I don't want to go back to that food. And when I was in the hospital, thank goodness they had a place where they could do your own hamburgers. You can build your own burger, and I could just get a burger without all the garbage. Now, I will say when I was in 3 hours away from home, breakfast was the hardest thing to get there because if you go to the cafeteria, this was so funny. They were charging $2.19 for one slice of bacon. I'm like, that's ridiculous. Can't afford this all every day, And I'm a person. I like 6 or 7 or 8 slices of bacon. I mean, I can eat almost a whole pack of bacon by myself, and I have done that. And I'm like, and then their eggs, I forget what they were, and I'm like, man, this is just gonna bankrupt me. So they did have, which is terrible, but they did have it. It was Chick-fil-A, and they had their biscuits and theirs. It was so much cheaper to get that. So I thought, I can eat this, and I didn't do it every day because I thought I know the biscuits would put weight on me, but it didn't inflame my body like I thought it would, so I was okay with that. And I was really watchful. But every time for lunch and stuff, I was eating the hamburgers and eating the hamburgers. But while my husband was in the hospital, of course, now he's diabetic and he's had a heart attack and had the heart problem. They was giving him food, Dave, that was raising his insulin. And then, of course, his blood sugar, I should say. Then they give him insulin. This was day after day. I said, honey, why don't you eat a hamburger with lettuce and tomatoes, no bun, and let me get it for you so that you don't have to keep taking these insulin shots because it's just going to keep happening when you eat the food they're giving you because they gave you mashed potatoes and gravy and meats and I'm like, and the meat wasn't meat. He didn't like chicken. He's not a chicken person. And they gave him, I think, one time they gave him some meatballs or something. But I'm thinking this is going to raise your blood sugar. So as soon as it was up 150, he had an insulin. So the next day they come in for that evening to check it, and it was like, oh, it's down to 130. And they said, you did good. I said, yeah, you didn't eat your food. So I went down and got him some food that was low carb. I said, this high carb diet you guys got him was killing me. Well, this was the funny day. They said, we'll call down and make sure it's just, you know, diabetic and heart. Well, I'm getting tickled because I told Don, I said, I want to see what they have you for breakfast. They brought him pancakes with syrup. He had a banana and he had all this fruit, and I'm thinking, pretty low carb, and not for diabetic, it's not. And I'm just amazed. I'm like, they don't care. They don't care.
That was their diabetic diet, pancakes.
Yes, yes. I about flipped out. I told my husband, I said, this makes no sense to me. And then they would give him ice cream, and he just got done having his cat, and he was hungry. And so let me bring you some ice cream. Not one, they brought him 2 little cups of ice cream. I thought maybe the second one was for me, but what? It was both for him. But anyway, he ate them. And I'm like, when they come in, you're going to have another insulin shot because your blood sugar is going to go back up to 160, 170, every bit of it. And so it's amazing to me. These hospitals don't care. I'm sorry to say, they just don't care. But they make money. They're there to make money. And I know that. I know that's what they're there for, just to make money. So
So,
that's right now.
what's the status of your husband's diabetes now?
Well, this is the funny part. Since he started in the last 3 weeks doing what we're doing, he's on no medication because they wanted to put him on, what's that, metformin, which we know metformin has already been said it can cause cancer. So he got off that a long time ago and tried to do it on his own, which he's been okay, but not really good. But when he was the heart attack, since then he was like 140s, 150s, 160s. Everything he was eating, no matter if he was coming down, it was having, I think it was the medications. And I had read up on some of the medications, and sure enough, it could cause that. So I told him, I said, until you can get off this medication, you're just not going to get it down where you want it. So now, since he started this the last 3 weeks, and we have taken him off a lot of the medication because it's causing his heart to race, and he's already got atrial fib, but he's down to like 110, 112, 120s. He's got it down to there. And I said, see, changing your diet will bring it completely down. He's got off of all of his soda. He drinks no pop now at all, soda pop. He quit that completely. So he's water, and sometimes I'll put lemon. I make like a real lemon with water, and he'll drink that. And he got off all milk because milk, except when he's in the hospital, gave him milk. And I'm like, he quit milk. Now he's got it in the hospital. Now he's drinking milk, and it's like it's driving me crazy. I'm like, you can't fix it when they do it. It's just like you just want to smack them. It's like stop. It's like the black and white TV. I mean, my girlfriend always says it's like that black and white TV where you go and smack it so it'll start working again. I said that's what you want to do to some of these people. So he did get away from that. I told him, I said, drinking that milk is raising your blood sugar. You know it. So he knows it. But when they bring it to him, he's going to eat it, and that's just how it was. But now that he's home, we haven't brought milk. We haven't had milk in this house, I think, for 3 months now because he's stopped. And how he stopped, though, Dave, was one day he had, I said, do me a favor. He was getting ready to make him some chocolate milk. And he uses that Nestle's no sugar stuff that you put in chocolate milk. I said, take your blood sugar first. So he did. So about an hour later, he comes up to the house. Now, I think his blood sugar at that time was 160 something. When he come back up and took it an hour later, it was over 200. I think it was like 206. He says, that raised that much? I'm like, that's what I've been trying to tell you. And when I started keto, I've never had, well, I can't say I wasn't a diabetic, Dave, because if they really would have checked my blood sugar back when I ate all the junk, processed food, I probably was a diabetic, but I didn't go to doctors. I don't like doctors. I'm just not a doctor person unless it's an emergency and I have to go. Like I've had to have a hysterectomy. I had my gallbladder taken out, which probably could have avoided that if I'd known about the stuff I was eating causing problems, but I didn't at the time. So I told him, I said, when I started keto, I got me one of the little finger prick things. I said, I'm going to check everything I eat, morning, noon. And I just wanted to check all the food. I found out so much stuff can put your glucose up so quick. So when I had done this low carb, I went, it was Christmas time to my our friend's house, and she had made this apple cake and they had pumpkin pies and stuff. She said, you got to try this apple cake. Well, I was like, no, 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 I'm good. I'm good. So the next day she says, try just one piece. So I did one piece. And she, now try this pumpkin pie and see what you think. So I took a little piece of pumpkin pie and I just did small ones. I didn't do big ones. But the next day, Dave, it wasn't then that it messed with me. The next day, that was on a Sunday, we was back home. We were watching church on our little iPad, and I'm like, I felt flushed, like my skin just felt like I'm really flushed. I'm like, hey, something's wrong. I took my blood sugar. It was LO on the monitor, so it was low. So I'm like, okay, I got to bring this up. So this is how I found out how bad oranges are for us. And they always tell you, drink orange juice, eat oranges. Our neighbor down the road had brought me oranges from Florida, me and my husband. Well, I wasn't going to eat them because I knew they weren't good for you anyway. So I thought, well, I'm going to try an orange and see what it does for my blood sugar. In 20 minutes, it raised it to 114. And that was from low to 114. So I told Don, I said, that's how fast the orange juice and oranges will raise your blood sugar. But people think it's the best thing in the world, drinking orange juice in the morning and stuff. And I'm like, no, it's a killer. My brother died of fatty liver disease. Okay. And he had watched somebody on YouTube, I guess, and they told him to drink orange juice. And I knew better. And I had told him, I said, brother, you got to quit drinking orange juice. I said, that is so bad for your liver. Well, he died of that, liver disease because he wouldn't stop doing stuff he needed to do. And that was just the sad part. And his liver, and he'd had a right after he found out that, I guess he had a massive heart attack that to the point where they had to bring him 4 times shocking to bring him back. And I think that did damage to his liver even more because he didn't last, I think, about a year after that when it happened. But it's just sad when you know you can help people and your loved ones, and they don't want to listen, and it hurts you because you really want to help them. So when I went to my first doctor's appointment, and I thought, well, I'm gonna go get my blood checked because I had done all this and I wrote down some stuff so I wouldn't forget. But I went to my doctor's appointment, and she had done a check on me and my triglycerides, because I went into her and she says, well, you got high cholesterol. I'm like, yeah, I know. I said, I'm a meat eater. I said, I'm going to have high cholesterol. I said, I'm not worried about it. I said, my problem is I'm worried about my liver because this was after my brother had died of that. And she, we don't have to worry about that. I said, why is that? She said, your triglycerides are 30. So I looked at her kind of funny and I said, so that means my liver's good? She said, yeah, that tells you about your liver. I said, so in other words, to me, I'm looking at this, your triglycerides would point out the bad cholesterol, not the LDL and HDL. She just smiled at me and she wouldn't say a word. And I thought, now I know. So if you're, because then my ALT and my AST was low. So that all correlates with your triglycerides, as I'm finding out. So I was like, this is great. I know now that I'm taking care of things. And my A1C, which I check at home by myself, it was like 4.8 at that time, and now it's 4.9 because I've been checking it too because I thought I'm going to make sure. I actually did it last week when I missed our interview. I had checked it because I said I'm going to get that because I want to know where I'm at when I talk to Dave, and it was 4.9. So I'm like, yes, this is great. So I know I'm at the right, still staying where I need to be. But and I'll tell you, as far as people do their weight and everything, I was a 175 back in 2016. Now I'm down to 139 to 135. I fluctuate right there. So I feel really, really good. And I know to some people, that's a long span to lose that weight. But for me, it was great because I did it slow. I didn't want to do a fast thing and then bring all the weight back on because I've done that before. But it was the food. And how I knew this was I used to do a Zumba class for our church, and older ladies would come and we did Zumba. And then I would go work out at the gym. So I thought, okay, now I can go home and eat whatever I want. I'll lose that weight. No, I lost 10 pounds. That was it. And I did this for a year, Dave. Like, why am I not losing weight? Well, my pastor, who was kind of into, he knew all about this kind of stuff. He said, I think you know why you're not losing it. I said, because I'm eating the way I'm eating, huh? He said, yeah, you're eating whatever you want when you leave, and that's not healthy for you, and that's not going to work. And it didn't. I mean, I did all that exercise for nothing. It was like maybe it helped my body a little bit, but it sure didn't lose the weight. So last Thursday, Wednesday, I think it was, I decided before we had our interview, I would check and see how much I've lost since 2017 in inches, not weight. Of course, the weight I know, but my inches ended up being 53 inches. And I'm like, that's another person. I'm 5 foot tall. That's another me. So that's how many inches I have lost over my whole body. Because I measure my neck, I measure above my breast below it, and I just do all the way down, even down to my legs. Because that's how you know that you're losing. You think, yeah, you lose it around your waist and everything, but if you don't check your other areas of your body, they you lose it there too. So I was told my husband, I said, honey, I said, I lost 53 inches on my body since 2017. And I said, to me, that's fantastic. So I'm really happy with
That's
that.
awesome. That's awesome. So if a friend came to you and said, "I wanna start this carnivore diet, you're doing so well," what advice would you give them?
I would tell them, this is what I would tell them, Dave, because this is what I told when I did it with the other people. Start with bread, get rid of the bread and the grains, cereal and all of that. Because I said cracker, cereal, everything you can get rid of this grain, get rid of it. I know you think it's good for you, but it's not. And I would tell them, I said, because that's where your inflammation starts. I said, then you've got to get away from seed oils, especially in processed food. Anything processed, absolutely get rid of it. Go with, good whole foods like fruits or not fruits, but vegetables and meats and that kind of thing. Because I was more on meat or anything. But there was some people who would come and says, well, I just bought a book on eating fixing beans. I want to eat beans. I'm like, you can't eat beans. They're really inflammatory for your body. I'm like, for your digestive system, and they're just not good for your intestines. And I said, I'm just telling you, they're not good for you, and I wouldn't eat them. So even in my class, I would tell people, I said, I know I'm stepping on toes. I mean, one lady come to see me and she brought a milkshake, and I'm like, this is a nutrition class and you're bringing a milkshake. So I just kind of laughed and I said, later I told him, I said, sugar is really bad for you. You've got to get back off the sugars, definitely get off the sugars. But my first thing mostly was telling people, do the breads, do the grains, get away from all the processed foods, and then just stick, well, get away from sugar as much as you can. And I got people who love chocolate. I mean, that's their thing. And I love chocolate too, but I know if I eat too much of it, it inflames my body. But they get this idea, and I know why, because that's what we've been said forever. The antioxidants, how's that called? Antioxidants? The good stuff. Again, the word I
Yeah.
need to say. But they would say, it's good for you. All this stuff's good for you. And I'm like, well, is it? Because if it's causing you inflammation in your body, it's not good for you. So that was my thing with people. I would just tell them, I said, you really have to, and it's not easy. It's got to be something you really put your mind to do, you know, and I do believe that.
Nice. How would you answer critics that say carnivore is too restrictive?
Well, to me, because I love meat, is not restricted to me because I can eat steaks and, all that good stuff. I guess people who don't like meats, like my husband gets tired of steak. He's like, I get sick of steak. I'm like, well, we can have fish. I said, then we can have, he loves hamburger. I said, we can have hamburger anytime you want it, but, we have fish if you want to. We tried chicken not too long ago, and it's just not our thing. And we do ribs, and we'll fry ribs. But it's like, I think experiment with your meats. Now, I have problems with spices. Some people don't. But paprika, when I use it, it burns my legs. I can feel the burning in my legs from paprika. I don't know why that is, but there's something about it my body don't like. Now I can do white pepper. I don't do black pepper anymore because of Sally K. Norton. She said white pepper is a lot better. And I do Redmond's sea salt. That's one of the things. But I think if you kind of can do spices, do that with your meats, and it kind of brings it up a little bit if going to do carnivore. So, and now my niece, who is into a lot of stuff, she does a lot of fermentation on vegetables, so she's learned about that. And I guess that kind of takes a lot of the oxalates out, from what I understand. So she's been doing a lot of that now. I don't do that because yeah, I do my own bone broth. I love my own bone broth. I'll do that and make my own, and that's something people really should do because of the collagen in them. So I do my own bone broth for that.
So, Linda, do you have any social media or any way of people getting in contact with you?
Well, back in the days, I did some carnivore and keto videos. I have a website I call me, God, and no, God, me, and keto carnivore. And the reason I always include God because I feel he's the one who got me started by bringing, after I prayed about it and brought that guy into my email, who I never even knew about, and slowly got me everywhere I'm going. So yeah, I have that, and I had puppets on my. I was a puppeteer, so I did little puppet stories, and stuff through the Bible. So that's kind of why it's called God, me, and keto carnivore. But I have all that stuff on my little videos and YouTube, and that's basically it. I mean, I do have a email address. If they wanted to, email me, they could do that.
I'll link to those below in the show notes. Linda, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story. I really appreciate your time.
Well, thank you very much, Dave, for having me. I appreciate it.